So what you're going to need is some Krylon spray, and this is a clear coat spray, and it dries in about 10 minutes. You're going to need some scrapbook paper, or any kind of paper that you want to put on your light switch. And I'm going to do 2 different light switches. So I'm going to do the blue out of this, so I'm going to cut this out, but I'll show you that later. Okay, you're going to need the light switches, and I have 2. These are just plastic light switches, and they come with these little screws. And I take the screws out, and that's what the screws look like. I take them out, and I collage over it, and then later you can put them back in. You're going to need some Mod Podge, and I keep my Mod Podge in this so it doesn't dry out in the bottle. A paintbrush, X-Acto knife, and scissors, but you don't really need an X-Acto knife if you don't have one. The reason that I'm using one is to cut out the inside, to make little insertions into the paper once it's complete, so that it's a little bit easier. You can use scissors for that as well though. And you're going to need a pencil. Alright, so let's get started. So here we have our switch plate, and we have our scrapbook paper, and I'm going to be using the polka dot one for this. And what I'm going to do is lay my switch plate flat onto the paper and trace around it. And you want to leave about at least a 1/2 inch edge around it, and this I didn't on this one, and you'll see the trouble I have later whenever I'm wrapping it around the sides on that edge over there, right here. Sorry, it blurred out a little bit. But I'm gonna go ahead and cut it out about a 1/2 inch around. It's a little less than a 1/2 inch, maybe 3/4 of an inch, but you can go up to a 1/2 inch. Okay. And I get a little bit out of frame here. I'm sorry. This camera is new, and I'm just learning how to stay in frame. Okay, so now what we're gonna do is we're going to take our paper that we've just traced on, and we're going to put some Mod Podge on it. And hopefully I can stay in frame, you guys. So I've got my paintbrush here, and I'm just going to put some Mod Podge directly onto the paper. And I'm using a really thick coat because this paper is dry, and it's not as flexible when it's dry. So the wetter you can get it, the better that it's going to stick to the plate and that it's going to be able to wrap around on the edges. And by the way, you're probably going to need a wash rag or something to wipe your hands on, because your hands will get very sticky with these, especially the second switch plate cover. So now I'm laying the switch plate cover on here, and it doesn't have to be even with your lines. I'm just making sure that it's on there good. And see, you have to kind of pull at the paper a little bit and lift it up and smooth out all the wrinkles with your fingers. Now this is not going to be 100%. If you get it 100%, more power to you, but I still, and as much as I try to do this, I still have a few wrinkles. Little or air bubbles, or like right there, yeah. Okay, so well, that's flattened, so we're going to turn it back around. You can see how I didn't get it exactly on my lines, and that's a pain later whenever I'm wrapping around. But you want to cut the edges at an angle to start with, and of course you can't see me cutting the angles, of course. Come on, Jennifer, get in frame. Okay, so I've cut the edges, and you're going to put Mod Podge or glue onto the sides and then wrap it around with your fingers. So if you see right here, I'm putting it on this edge, and I have a little bit of trouble with where I cut at an angle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap it around, And then I'm going to go ahead and cut the edge off, the point of the edge off. And you'll see here in just a second. Because it's going to be on the other paper and it's not going to want to adhere good. So I'm going to go ahead and cut it off. And then on both sides, well, on all 4 sides. So now you have to add a lot of Mod Podge. It's not wanting to cooperate with me, the paper is. It's still kind of dry. And I'm going to put some Mod Podge in the center, not the center, but inside the switch plate cover as well, to try to get it to grab a little bit better. Kind of funky like that. The paper doesn't want to grab onto plastic very easily. And I do use homemade Mod Podge, so that could be another effect. If you used not Elmer's glue, but Elmer's or school glue, it might stick a little bit better. Mod Podge is a little bit thinner than school glue. And now I'm going to cut off the other corners. And add a little more Mod Podge to this side. And this is the side I have trouble with because it's not going to want to stick down because I've made it too short. So I say at 3/4 to 1/2 of an inch is a good overlapping. And I think these switch covers, they were really cheap. I can't remember if I got them at Home Depot or Lowe's. I think it was Home Depot, but they were less than 50 cents each. So they're really, really affordable. And they have different sizes. This is actually a smaller size. They have also all the other switch plates. You can do this with the covers for your plugins, your outlets. If you have more than one light switch and you need a switch plate for that, you can do that with that as well. So here I'm just pressing it in and I keep having to go back over it. And this is where my hands get kind of sticky because I keep touching the Mod Podge and I keep pushing it over the edges and it doesn't want to stick down. It will eventually stay down though. It just takes some working with it. And I'm sorry if you hear a humming noise in the background. I have my heater on because my craft room is not insulated, so it gets pretty cold in here, so I have my heater on for that. So I'm going to trim off these edges, or corners, excuse me, corners, not edges. Don't trim off the edge because then you won't have anything to wrap around. Alright. Now we're going to do the same thing as we did with the other 2 sides. We're going to put Mod Podge onto the strip of paper on the edge and also on the inside where the paper folds over. And you kind of fold it over and pinch it a little bit with your fingers so that it stays against the switch plate plastic. So now we're going to do the other side. That side was pretty easy, but you see this is about 3/4 of an inch overhang. So I'm going to do the same thing, wrap it around, and make sure you get it where there's a little bit too much on the edge there on the corner. Let me cut that. Okay, well, that's okay. Okay. Okay, just kind of press it in. Alright, so now we have this part of the switch plate cover done. And you can see I went right over the holes. I didn't do anything with those yet. So what we're going to do now is we are going to take our X-Acto knife, and you can kind of see the holes where they are through the paper. But I'm going to cut a little hole where the nails are. And if you can't see, you can go through on the back side. But you don't need a big hole because if you make a big hole, your nail only needs a little hole to go through. And I just do that so the paper doesn't rip. when you screw your nail into the wall. And here I'm going to make an X in the center where the light switch is. And you just want to make an X. It doesn't have to be perfect because it's going to be folded over and wrapped around. So now I'm going to turn the switch plate over, and I'm going to put some Mod Podge again on the paper that I just cut. And I'm going to use my fingers to wrap it around so that it sticks to the inside of the switch plate cover, so that the hole is open for the light switch to go through. And it does take a few minutes to work with, and if you accidentally don't get all of the edge, like this corner down here, I didn't get all of it, so I'm just going to cut a little bit extra and all the way to the corner, so that way it doesn't get messed up whenever I screw it into the wall. And you can see there's still a little bit of air bubbles there. That's unavoidable when you're working with paper. Maybe you can get it to not air bubble. I never have been able to, and I've done a bunch of these. Okay, that one was a little bit off too, so. All right. So then if the inside would just stay down. So now, okay, so now we're done with that part. And we have the nail holes. And they're fine like that. You can just leave them, and when you screw your nail in, just go right over the top where the hole is. And we need to put some Krylon spray on this. And I always use Krylon because it's UV protectant and it works really good for me. And I've had I can clean the switch plate cover if I use Krylon. So that's why I use that brand. But really any clear coat brand would work, as long as you're not going to be scrubbing the light switch with like Brillo pad or something like that. So you're going to need 3 coats of this. And you have to let it takes 10 minutes for this kind to dry. So another reason I use it. You're going to spray it once and let it dry for 10 minutes. Spray it again, let it dry for 10 minutes. Spray it one more time, and let it dry for 10 minutes. And then it should be done, and it should be good enough to where you can clean it off with soap and water, and it won't affect the paper underneath. All right, so I'm going to set that aside and let that dry. And now we're going to work on our second switch plate cover. And, sorry, I've got a mess here. You want to make sure when you spray that Krylon it's ventilated also, because it's not good to breathe in. Okay, so I'm going to be using this paper, but I don't want the roses. So what I'm doing is I'm cutting around, because I want the blue polka dots, but not the roses. And I don't know why it's so blurry. I'm really sorry about that. My camera is not, maybe the setting is off. And when I started tearing out the paper, tearing out the roses, but there's so much space where the roses are, and it's all in between, that I finally pick up a pair of scissors and start cutting it with a pair of scissors, because it's just easier. And I just want the blue part, so I'm going to cut out, if I get any green on there, I'm going to cut out the green. And it doesn't matter what paper you use for this. Scrapbook paper, any thin paper will work. And you can cut pieces. It doesn't have to be exact squares. It doesn't have to be even. You can see this is just a piece. I'm cutting out the green and the pink that were left on it. They can be odd shaped, which is what I like. It gives it a more organic feel. And I'm just going to go through and cut out all the blue that I can, so that I can just add the blue to it. And I was thinking about adding one of these roses, but I figured the nail would get in the way when you screw the nail in, so you wouldn't be able to see the whole rose anyway. So I just decided to stick with the polka dot paper that's around the roses. Okay, so I've got some paper here. And I'm probably going to need more, and I'll just cut that later if I need more. Yeah, I need a little bit more. Okay. And this was just a scrapbook paper that I was going to use for something else and decided not to. You can use book pages, scrapbook paper. I wouldn't use cardstock because it's very thick and it's hard to get it to stick down to the sides. You can use music pages. What else? There's any kind of thin paper. You can print things out onto computer paper and use computer paper. Although computer paper might be a little thin, so it might be a little bit see-through once you have the Mod Podge and the Krylon on it. Okay, so let's get started. And I'm going to do the same that I did with the other one. I'm going to cover up the holes, and later when it's dry, I'm going to cut them out again, like we did with the first switch plate cover. So here I'm going to add pieces, and you want them to go over the edge. And you want them to go over the edge so that way it wraps around, because if you have little pieces that aren't over the edge, you might see the white through. And also, if you don't go over the edge and you don't put Mod Podge over that, if you're washing it off with water, you might get under the Mod Podge and mess up your paper. So always go over the edge and onto the back with your pieces of paper. So that way Mod Podge covers it completely. So all I'm doing is just taking little pieces of paper and collaging them on, just like if you were going to do a torn paper collage, it would be the same thing, or a cut paper collage. It'd be the same sort of thing. You just collage little pieces over the top of each other so that there's no white space showing. And I'm kind of at the top of the frame here, but you guys can still see kind of what I'm doing here. Promise, guys, the next video will be better. I'll make sure that the frame, that it's a little bit farther away, so that way I don't get out of frame so much. Okay. See, these are very odd shaped papers, so I usually put about 1/4 of an inch over the edge, maybe a little bit more. Just enough to wrap around to the other side. You can put more if you want, like the 3/4 to 1/4 to 3/4 around the edge, just so you can get it to wrap over. And this is very funky, and this is where you get glue all over your fingers and Mod Podge all over your fingers, and it sticks to your switch plate. And it sticks to everything that you've already done. So you want to keep your fingers clean, because it's a lot easier and it doesn't get little pieces of Mod Podge stuck to the paper that you've already collaged on. And you can kind of see the white part of the switch plate has a little bit of, it looks like dirt, but it's actually just Mod Podge that came off my fingers. Okay, so just keep collaging on, and here you can see I'm doing the edge right where the corner is. You want to make sure you get your corners. I wouldn't go over the corner in the middle, because then it would be kind of hard to get it to stay. But both corners need to have Mod Podge on them, or all 4 corners need to have Mod Podge, both sides. And it needs to come to a point so that way they connect together. And if you put Mod Podge on the inside where you put your paper, that'll help protect it too from water damage. I'm going to do this a little bit more, and then I'm going to fast forward it so you don't have to watch me do the whole thing, because collage the whole thing, because that would be a waste of your time. I don't want to waste your time, so I'm just giving you about how to do it with this side, and I'll go over the holes and you can see that a little bit, and then I'll fast forward it, and so yeah. And you can see I'm kind of using smaller pieces. I could use bigger pieces, but I like the look of the smaller pieces all collaged together. Because if I use a big piece here and a smaller piece there and another big piece, it might look kind of wonky. So I'll do it with all the smaller pieces. They're all about the same size, just different shapes. You definitely want to get your edges good. I know I keep saying that, but it's important because if you're going to wash the switch plates off, which sometimes they get dusty, sometimes they get fingerprints on them, and you have to sanitize them if you have kids and things like that. So you want to make sure that it has enough layers of Mod Podge on it so that it doesn't get damaged. And they do make dishwasher safe Mod Podge. Now I wouldn't suggest putting this in the dishwasher, but if you needed to use something a little bit stronger, like I have, 4 kids, and they're always light switch on, light switch off, light switch on, light switch off, and always with their hands. They don't wash their hands, and then it gets stuff everywhere. So a lot of times I will use the after I spray it with the Krylon, I will use the dishwasher safe Mod Podge. It also makes it a bit more shiny. And what that does is anytime I need to wash the switch plate cover, I can use something a little bit more, like, the sponges, they come with the one side is soft and one side has a scrubber on it. I can use that on the switch plate cover as long as I use the dishwasher safe Mod Podge. And there are also other glazes that you can use as well. There's polyacrylic, and that is more of a thin glaze. Mod Podge glazes are thicker than that, and I do like using the thicker glazes because they tend to work better and they stay more where you put them and don't run off the sides. Okay, oh, that was bright. Sorry about that. Okay, I'm running out of Mod Podge and I cannot get this jar open. My homemade Mod Podge jar is stuck. Lid is stuck, and I'm gonna have to get my husband to open it for me. So let's just go back to Mod Podging with what I have left in my little container here. These containers are so neat. I got them at the Dollar Tree, and they came 8 in a pack, I think it was, for $1. And they're really good about. They seal really good. They're like little acrylic paint containers, but I put my Mod Podge in them. Okay, so let's see. Yeah, I went and had him open my Mod Podge for me so that I could go ahead and get some more in there. And see, with this piece, I'm just going to go right over the side, and I'm not putting it directly in the middle yet. You can do it over the side. As long as you have one piece in the middle, it will be okay. Where the hole is for the light switch part. So right now I'm just doing around the edge, around the top part, but I'm going to overlap a little bit, and that makes the paper stronger. The paper stronger whenever you cut it with the X-Acto knife. Alright, let me do this edge over here, and I think I'm about ready to start fast forwarding. Okay. And you can see I have my cherries paper down, which gets a lot of, I always switch out my scrapbooking paper. It's just a big piece of scrapbooking paper I put underneath to protect my table, even though my table's a mess anyway. But I don't want all that sticky paint and stuff getting on my table and then getting on whatever I'm working on. So, alright, see, so I went over the middle a little bit, and I'm still going over the sides. And it's coming together nicely. I'm liking the way this is looking. I think I chose a pretty piece of scrapbook paper for this. Still would have liked to have put the roses, one of the roses on there, but this switch plate cover is not big enough. Okay. The angle is off on my camera. I'm trying to see, making sure I'm getting the edge good, and I know I was off out of frame there, but this edge over here was bothering me and I couldn't get it to stick down right, so kind of went out of frame for a second so that I could just stick it down better. Finish this little edge over here, and then I'm going to fast forward, and I will see you back here as soon as I'm done with the fast forwarding part, so we can move on to the next step. Okay, we are back, and this is dried for 2 hours. And now we're going to use our X-Acto knife and cut our holes for our nails. It's getting blurry, sorry about that. Okay, this one I went to the back side to cut the hole because I couldn't see it through the front side because the paper was too thick. But here we have, do another X, cut another X in the center where the light switch part is. And you want to go from corner to corner, and here I tried to do it in the middle, but no, have to do it from the corner inward. I couldn't really see the corner, that's why I was trying to, there we go. Okay, and I'm going to flip it over. Kind of push these in a little bit and flip it over, and then put Mod Podge on the little triangles on the inside. Okay, and then we're going to do like we did with the other switch plate. We're going to use our fingers to push the papers inside, and flip them over onto the, press them onto the inside of the switch plate cover so that they stay where they're glued at, where they're Mod Podged at. And this can be a little bit tricky because the paper is so small. There's not a lot of overlapping not a lot to push on into the inside, but it does work. You just got to work with it a little bit. And of course, out of frame again. Ugh, that bugs me. I think I should redo the whole video just for the couple of out of frames. maybe the next one will be in frame. Okay, so because I can't see what I'm doing when I put it in front of the camera. So okay, here we go. It's a little bit wonky. It doesn't want to stay. Oh, I spilled my Mod Podge. Darn it. Okay, let me get this. Yeah, I'll pick that up in a second. I just use my paintbrush. If you spill your Mod Podge, just use your paintbrush to pick it up and put it back into the container. Okay. So here we have it, and this needs to dry a little bit, and then you can spray it with your Krylon clear coat spray. Okay. Alright, see, it looks very pretty even without the roses. Right? And we have the other one is done, and it had the 3 coats of spray on it, and you can't really see the shininess of it because of the angle of the camera. Okay, here's a couple pictures of them, and I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and I will see you here for the next one.